This is bonkers. They have grown brain cells in a lab and taught them how to play Doom. I'm going to show you this. This is crazy. But before we do that, we've got a lot to cover in this video. So we've got one of the robotics leads, or a hardware lead from OpenAI, leaving the company because of what's happened with the deal with the Department of War. We've got memory price problems, which may get better in late 2027. Great. We've got Nintendo suing the US government. We've just got a load of stuff going on here. We need to get stuck into this. There's so much to cover. Let's do it. So this is from Cortical Labs, and it is apparently human brain cells playing Doom. Real neuron gameplay, it says behind me. And this is apparently what's going on. And there's the brain. Like, what is going on? We don't need chips anymore. We don't need GPUs. We can just grow brains. And also, brains would be really efficient for power. So they wouldn't need a load of power. So we're going to have, like, massive, like, wetware labs of AI data. Everything always comes back to AI. Brain. Anyway, let's break this down. It's crazy. So new scientists have got an article on this. They say human brain cells on a chip learn to play Doom in a week. Like, what? Neuron-powered computer chips can now be easily programmed to play a first-person shooter game, bringing biological computers a step closer to useful applications. Biological, like, at what point does it become alive? What? Also, what is this? This is not Doom, is it? I don't know what this is. What's the guy's face? Anyway, a screen image of Doom being played by human neurons on a chip. That's not Doom, though, is it? Anyway, who cares? It's an FPS game. Let's leave it at that. Anyway, a clump of human brain cells can play the classic computer game Doom. While its performance is not up to par with humans, experts say it brings biological computers a step closer to useful real-world applications. In 2021, the Australian company Cortical Labs used the neuron-powered computer chips to play Pong. The chips consisted of clumps of more than 800,000 living brain cells grown on top of microelectrode arrays. What? What does that even mean? What the hell? That can both send and receive electrical signals. Researchers had to carefully train the chips to control the paddles on either side of the screen. Now, Cortical Labs has developed an interface that makes it easier to program these chips using the popular programming language Python. An independent developer, Sean Cole, then used Python to teach the chips to play Doom, which he did in around a week. Unlike Pong, work that we did a few years ago, which represents years of painstaking scientific effort, this demonstration has been done in a matter of days by someone who previously had relatively little expertise working directly with biology. What? Says Brett Kagan of Cortical Labs. It's this accessibility and flexibility. Like, you have to feed it. Does it break? I mean, it must die, surely, if it's biological. How do you replace them? Like, what? The neuronal computer chip, which uses about a quarter as many neurons as the Pong demonstration, played Doom better than a randomly firing player, but far below the performance of the best human players. However, it learned much faster than traditional silicon-based machine learning systems and should be able to improve its performance with newer learning algorithms. What? However, it's not useful to compare the chips with human brains, he says. Yes, it's alive, and yes, it's biological, but really, what it is being used as is a material that can process information in very special ways that we can't recreate in silicon. Doom is vastly more complex than earlier demonstrations, and successfully interacting with it highlights real advances in how living neural systems can be controlled and trained, says Andrew Adamatsky of the University of West England in Bristol, UK. Steve Ferber at the University of Manchester agrees that Doom is a significant level up from playing Pong, but he says there's still a lot we can do to understand about these neurons playing the game, such as how the neurons know what is expected of them, or how they can see the screen with no eyes. What? Even so, such as how they can see the screen with no eyes. Oh, no. Even so, the jumping capability is exciting, says Hatkasu Yahashi. I apologize. At the University of Reading in UK, and brings us significantly closer to useful real-world applications, such as controlling a robotic arm with biological computers, a task which Hayashi and his colleagues are attempting with a similar computer made from jelly-like... What? Hydrogel? Playing Doom is like a simpler version of controlling a whole arm. What's exciting here is not that the biological system can play Doom. Oh, I think it is. But that it can cope with the complexity, uncertainty, and real-time decision-making. What? So that's much closer to the kinds of challenges that future... Oh, okay, what the hell? So a brain, like this to me, just seems crazy. So they can grow brain cells in a lab. I mean, I'm assuming that they, I don't know, what, they're using stem cells or something? Because obviously not just pulling brain cells out of someone. So they're growing them in a lab, probably in some fancy bioreactor or something. And then they've got them, the mass of them, and they grow them on a special chip or a plate, and then they can feed instructions to them, and they operate as a type of computer. That is crazy. What? Now, of course, this actually, if you think about it, I mean, this is totally sci-fi and completely out there, but can you imagine like racks of brain computers? I mean, they wouldn't take a lot of power really compared to traditional silicon, and they might be able to do things and learn faster than even these AI systems we've got at the moment. So like, what are we just going to see brain data centers? Also, what about the quality of the where the original brain cell comes from as well? Okay, so this is Nintendo suing the US government. Now, if you can see down the bottom, it says this action concerns defendants, initiation, administration of unlawful trade measures. This is, of course, about the trade tariffs, which to date have resulted in the collection of more than 200 billion in tariffs on imports from nearly all countries. This complaint focuses on defendants' unlawful imposition of tariffs founded on President Trump's executive orders invoking the international emergency economic powers. So this is Nintendo of America attempting to get its money back from the tariffs, which were deemed illegal by the US Supreme Court. But of course, this is going to be a giant mess. And Trump hasn't he put like a 15% tariff on the whole world or something? I don't even know what's going on anymore. But Nintendo is suing the government. And you all know that when Nintendo sue, they sue. Okay, so we've got some kind of good news here. So this is Steam 2025 year in review. There's a lot going on here. Remember, there's a load of links in the video description below to all the sources, but the main takeaway from this is the hardware section. So I've highlighted it here at the bottom, and this is what they say. Well, we'll read this section off here because it gives a bit more context. Fast forward to 2025, and we've solved a bunch of the hardest problems. The Proton compatibility layer brought thousands of excellent games to Linux and SteamOS at no cost to game developers. Millions of players have helped us refine and perfect the gamepad experience of shopping, playing, and chatting on Steam. Manufacturing learnings from the original Steam controller, the Steam Link streaming box, the Valve Index, and the Steam Deck all poured into realizing what we dreamed about more than a decade earlier. Sorry, I sneezed, but I've cut that out. A gaming-first living room experience, open platform for customers, and wireless virtual reality headset with its own processing power. So that's the plan. However, here's the lineup of hardware we announced in 2025. We shared recently that there have been challenges with memory shortages, memory and storage shortages, I should say, not story. But we will be shipping all 3 products this year. More updates will be shared as we finalize our plans. Now, the original version of this document said we will not be shipping. They've been delayed. It's now changed, and it says that they will be shipping them this year. Now, the issue with this is, as we know, memory is very expensive because of AI hoovering it up and also storage. So these devices, whatever their initial price was going to be, which we kind of thought they were going to be fairly expensive anyway, they're going to be more expensive. And it looks like Valve don't want to keep waiting because they might have to wait until like 2027, which would be crazy. So this is where I'm getting that from. This is over on Tom's Guide, and an Asus rep says memory shortage should start to normalize by 2027, but nobody wants to be the first one to lower prices. So if you are Valve and you want to launch your hardware, and it depends obviously on memory, on RAM, on storage, you either just bite the bullet and say maybe prices will come down a little bit by the end of this year, or you have to wait until well into next year and hope for the best, and who knows what might happen. And it seems they've just decided to say, look, we're just going to sell it this year. So it's kind of good news that they're going to be available. I really want a Steam frame. I'm not too bothered about the Steam machine, but the wireless headset, I really want that. But I mean, yeah, once again, AI is just making everything massively expensive. So the reason why I've got this here is this actually gives a bit more flavor to the debate on memory and why it's being used so much. So what you can take away from this is, if you look at the graph, or the chart, I should say, you can see that the increase in RAM that is required for each one of these NVIDIA chips as they come out. Now, obviously, the H200, this was like where things really started to kick off, I guess, for the AI accelerators back in 2023. And then you can see as they get bigger and bigger, so the B200, the B300, which I think, well, these are both Blackwell variants, I believe. But you can see how this is getting more and more and more. The good news is, I mean, this isn't good news, it's hilariously ridiculous news, but the gap between these two isn't that much, but holy shit, it's 300 gig of RAM. So this is crazy. Remember, they're selling tons of these chips, and this is why RAM is just getting hoovered up by the likes of NVIDIA and everybody else who's looking to basically build AI, which is insane. So talking of AI, let's take a look at what's going on with OpenAI, because there's two things that are happening here. There's a pullback on Stargate, which is their data center build out, and there's this. So the OpenAI hardware leader resigns after a deal with Pentagon. So Caitlin Kalinowski, originally I thought she was the robotics lead, and obviously this ties into not wanting to use AI systems to control autonomous drones or robotics to just, create war and take part in war without humans being inside that decision-making process. And actually, she's the hardware leader, but it's still robotics integrated in some ways. And she does mention that. So they say, Caitlin, who oversaw hardware at OpenAI, announced a resignation on Saturday, citing concerns about the company's agreement with the Department of Defense. In a social media post on X, Kalinowski wrote that OpenAI did not take enough time before agreeing to deploy its AI models on the Pentagon's classified cloud networks. AI has an important role in national security, but surveillance of Americans without judicial oversight and lethal autonomy without human authorization are lines that deserve more deliberation than they got. Reuters could not immediately reach Kalinowski for comment, but she wrote on X that while she has deep respect for OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and the team, the company announced the Pentagon deal without the guardrails defined. It's a governance concern, first and foremost, Kalinowski wrote in a subsequent X post. These are too important for deals to be announced and rushed. OpenAI said the day after the deal was struck that it includes additional safeguards to protect its use cases. The company said on Saturday, reiterated that its red lines preclude the use of technology in domestic surveillance or autonomous weapons. And we recognize, okay, so I think, let me just check a tweet, because I'm sure she mentioned robotics. Okay, here's the tweet. So she didn't directly mention robotics. That's my mistake. But you can see here, I mean, we basically read it in the other article, and they broke it up. But surveillance of Americans without judicial oversight and lethal autonomy without human authorization are lines that deserve more deliberation than they got. I think this is probably where I got confused, because I was reading OpenAI robotics leader resigns from Fortune, but not technically the robotics leader, but a hardware leader, but still. Okay, now I do want to talk about this idea of autonomous weapons. And again, I can't play this video because I think this is The Economist or someone. They will copyright strike my channel. So again, there's a link to the video description below. But this user has broken it down on Twitter. And this gives you an idea of what he said. So he said, right now, I have an army of human soldiers. You have an army. He doesn't, but you have an army of human soldiers, and there are norms about serving in the military. You're supposed to follow orders, but if something crazy happened, soldiers would say, I'm not going to do that. You basically have a set of norms about how soldiers serve, what they see their duties to be. What if you have an army of 10 million drones instead of 10 million human soldiers? What are the norms of the AI-driven drones? I think if we handle this wrongly, you could have a situation where there's a very small number of people, or even one person, who has their hand on the button and the controls that controls those 10 million drones. And this is the issue, isn't it? Because obviously, when you set rules, and I don't want to talk about rules of engagement and all that stuff, I don't want to go down that path, but when you talk about interpretation of any type of rule, it isn't just, they can be ambiguous sometimes. And sometimes you just take that human element to say, well, we need to look at it this way or that way. Surely an AI system would just be like yes or no, and it would just execute based on that. And if we are moving into a world where you've got millions of drones just flying all over the place, controlled by some central unit, which might even just be fully AI anyway, what's going to happen? What happens if they attack the wrong targets? What happens if they cause, again, it's all that stupid shit of like, what happens if we turn into Terminator and, we've got Skynet and all that crap. But you can see why you would need humans in that chain. And I agree with what Dario says, and other people in the AI space saying, no, surely there needs to be someone who has the say. But again, that becomes a problem, doesn't it? Because if it's just one person deciding what to do, and you've got to think like the amount of like damage like millions of drones could do compared to like things that can be currently done today is astronomical. So one person, in theory, could issue massive strikes against other countries or enemies or whatever, and it doesn't even like that. The destruction could be unbelievable. There is also something else with AI, and this got me thinking. Like, if you think this is like playing on the whole idea of application of law. If you've got AI that could, in theory, look at every single legal issue, right? We might be moving into a world where everything is either yes or no. And I mean, not everything. So I'm not saying you've got this, and I definitely haven't, but let's say you got a parking ticket, or if you're in the UK, you're driving your car and you forgot to tax your car, you forgot to get your MOT, right, or something like that. In an AI world, it would immediately know you haven't done that. I mean, to be fair, they could probably do that in the non-AI world, but it would immediately target you and issue a fine immediately. And wouldn't that be great for governments if they could just have mass enforcement of law? But is that actually the way the law should be applied? Now, again, I'm not nowhere near qualified to even discuss this, but I just thought it was an interesting concept because it's almost like AI gives you an unlimited workforce, so you can do unlimited things. You can look at a lot of different things that were not possible before. So Ed Ludlow from Bloomberg has reported this. Oracle and OpenAI have scrapped plans to expand their flagship Stargate AI data center in Albany, I can't say that. It's somewhere in Texas anyway, after financing talks dragged on and OpenAI's needs shifted. The collapse opened the door for Meta to lease the expansion site from Crusoe, with NVIDIA paying $150 million deposit and helping court Meta to keep its chips in the project. Now, the original 4.5 gigawatt Oracle OpenAI deal remains on track. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because remember, there's a deal between Meta and NVIDIA to provide AI chips, and NVIDIA are very happy to just drop massive deposits on things to make sure they've got the space to actually use these GPUs when they buy them. And also, OpenAI is recalibrating. Okay, so talking of recalibrating, I guess, if you look at this, Google joins Microsoft in telling users Anthropic is still available outside of defense projects. Now, this is like Microsoft and Google in some ways are backing Anthropic in their position against the US government and the Department of War, but not really. They're saying, look, it's only defense applications that can't be used. Claude can't be used. You see, Microsoft obviously hosts a lot of compute for Anthropic, and so they don't want that removed. Google don't. So Google are kind of, well, I think maybe they do in some ways. Don't quote me on that. But Google, it would be less, it would be better for Google, let's say, if Anthropic went out of business. But it's kind of nice to see them sort of getting behind them. But again, remember, these like massive AI conglomerates are just, at the end of the day, it's a dog-eat-dog world in their world. And they're just hoovering up all the resources and basically making everything way more expensive. Harvesting our data, massively more expensive computer components, more expensive electricity, water issues, data center build-out issues, all of that stuff. All right, there you go. So some interesting stuff there. I still, obviously, there's going to be an issue with one of these AI companies is going to collapse. It really does look like it's going to be OpenAI. We know SoftBank are trying to get a loan to fund a loan to give the money to OpenAI. OpenAI are not going forward with a Texas data center expansion. They're having some issues with PR at the moment, massive issues. Like over 2.5 million people have left their platform. Which isn't great, but of course they do care because it's damaging their image. But yeah, they're also losing key members of staff. And there is one thing that's got to be said, and I have said this before, but it is worth reiterating this. A lot of these engineers at AI labs, they're very powerful, right? If they don't agree with something, they can just walk into another job at another competing lab. So you've got all of this stuff where these people are moving around from lab to lab to lab, you know, from your Anthropics to your Googles to your DeepMind, well, that'd be Google, to your OpenAI, back and forth all over that place. So these people, it's not really, they may just see this as an opportunity to move, get to a different lab, triple their wage or whatever the hell they get. Like Meta were paying people crazy amounts of money, like hundreds of millions to join their AI lab. And I think that guy actually left, the one who got a massive thing. Did he go to Amazon or something? I don't know, but whatever. This is just, I can't believe they've got brain cells that can play Doom. To me, that just seems crazy, because where'd you go from there? What point does it come alive? Like, what? Anyway, all right, guys, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. I'll catch you lovely lot on the next one. See you soon.